afternoon, everybody. Wall Street Jesus here. Tuesday post-game show. We finally got some action to talk about flow-wise. Nice little pickup in activity last couple of days, this week actually. And I think that has more to do with just little by little earnings. We're getting through some, key names here. And as things clean up, either side, we should see some clarity amongst the sweeper activity we've been seeing. There's been decent flow. The problem is all the good-looking orders, as we spoke about the last couple of weeks. You had earnings that you had to dodge, and you really had to weigh your options. Whether it was worth trading the run-up or not. But anyway, we got some names we can talk about today. Interesting day, obviously. The Tesla, I don't want to spend too much time on that because you'll probably hear it all over TV and finance Twitter all night long. The only thing I will say, flow-wise, but basically we had, outside of just spec action in general on the call side the last couple of days, we had some algo sweeps that came in literally I would say probably seconds, not minutes before. Hold on. Before the Saudi headline. Yeah, nothing good looking. The best looking bet I've seen in Tesla was the one that came about I think it was a couple days, maybe a week before earnings. That was the only good-looking sweep. The rest have been spec sweeps. But basically, today? This is today, right? Yeah. So let's see. What time was this? Anyway, this is what came in. You had a bunch of sweeps here. This summed it up. This is the first group of guys that caught it. Basically, probably ended up being more than that by 500%. Little, again, spec, initially algo sweepers. And what I'm referring to as algo sweepers, for those of you who may not be familiar with my lingo or the terminology, a lot of times we see in weeklies primarily, sometimes front month strikes, we see cheap, uneven amount of contract sweeps come in out of nowhere, and they're almost machine-like. They get sprayed, and basically it's some algo out there picking up on a headline that we just didn't hear yet. Okay, they obviously get it before we do, and sometimes if we don't see the rumor or the chatter initially, it allows us to make a play getting quick before the rush comes. Tesla, you kind of had to chase, but it was pretty evident the sweepers kept coming after those algo sweepers to really give you a good indication that something pretty big was going on. Okay, initially we thought it was the investment, the Saudi investment, but obviously it was a lot more that followed after that. A lot of people in the room caught nice ones. Congratulations. For the most part, I think most people took a lot of risk off the table. We did see some put action protection later on, post halt. And, it's tough to really get a gauge on whether they're betting on downside or just protecting, pile of profits they made in a half a day. All right. But again, the only edge or sweeper activity was that round of algo sweepers that came in. And then you hear me say it a lot of times the algo sweepers, you'll get a rumor and things will just fizzle out. If you see them continue to sweep post the rumor, okay, in other words, sweepers, you get the algo sweepers, XYZ is looking to get bought out, okay? So a lot of times we don't see any action after that. And, the momentum dies out and these things go nowhere. But for the most part, if they continue to come after upside calls, once the rumor's out, that's an indication that not necessarily there's validity to the rumor, but players are believing the momentum there, okay? And that's ultimately a good sign when we see that, and we saw that today in Tesla. All right. Other than that, I couldn't care less. There's no reason to get fixated on it. You see what's going on right now with people who are short this name, and it's a shame. Some of the smartest minds out there when it comes to this game will waste their brain cells, their money, and a lot of times their career on being short something that they swear to themselves don't make sense, and ultimately it breaks them. It boggles my mind at some of the most intelligent players in this game will get knocked out of the box, knocked out of the game because of something like that. So again, on the call side, on the long side as well, there's no reason to get fixated on these things. Stop trying to make sense out of it. I saw it a little bit already in the room the whole afternoon when talking Tesla. Oh yeah, this deal's real because, oh, this deal's not going to happen because. You're wasting your brain cells. Okay, you're wasting your brain cells on this nonsense. The smartest players out there can't figure it out. You're going to figure it out. Okay, so you look to take advantage of the opportunity. Whether you're looking to, make a short play, fine. Make sure it's a trade. Make sure you have your risk managed, and don't fall in love with the story on either side. So for me, I couldn't give two shits. Excuse my French. Whatever happens, happens. Let Tesla go to 0 or 3,000 tomorrow in a gap up, and that's all she wrote. All right. Aside from that, okay, before Tesla, we saw some decent action out there. Okay, better, not 2017 type buying, but again, because of earnings, we're seeing a little more clarity on the action front. Okay, a couple names off the top of my head. You had this Dow DuPont, which I think the Nigerians were talking about on the halftime show today. All right, so you got this Dow DuPont chemical name. A lot of people think the stock is cheap, so there may be some bargain hunters down here, but some decent action on the call side today. I'm not crazy about the spot. It's not the worst spot, but you have a little bit of a lift here. So on top of a lot of riffraff eyeballs being on it because of the CNBC mention, you may get some sort of breather here. They are October calls, so you have some time. All right. So if you're in it off today's action, just be aware this thing can pull back. It can breathe a little and be totally fine. And if you're not, you may want to look for further action into any weakness because that could line up as a decent opportunity. All right. But some big action. October calls there. Cuervo was another name. These were out in February of early next year. And you had sweepers laying some big time wood. Again, not crazy about the spot. You guys know what I like. I like to nail these things right here and have this as a little bit of a cushion, just in case there is a little breather. But size activity out in February, you do have decent amount of time there. You could keep an eye on it. You could piece in on weakness. You can play these in a number of different ways. All right, but again, my job is to tell you that the action is legitimate, and Dow DuPont, Cuervo, both names attracting real buying. Okay, and another name which I've had my eye on because I've done well in it last year, this SGMS. Okay, and I don't know how I ended up this day without a swing position, but I'll tell you what. A couple of us traded this thing 3-4 times today. I traded it 3 times myself. Once early morning, I actually scalped it. The second time I traded it, I caught a real nice move. I caught about $1.18 on the upside, which is a decent move for me intraday. And then the last round of buying that came into some weird selling. This stock opened up down $1 and change, caught some flow, rallied back to green, okay? then got knocked down, was down $3 at a time in the middle of the afternoon. Okay, looked like it was going to zero at one point. And more buying came into that selling, rallied back to green, from down $3 back to green. So there were a couple times that did that today. Nice day trade. You could have traded a couple times. Some people were up like 50% on the contracts. The stock was great. The good thing is you had two options there. If you're looking for that quicker trade, you had some action in August calls. Okay, so that's something you would target there. But honestly, we were talking about this in the room. If you were in August calls and you're up 50% in a half hour, I mean, that's a trade right there. No, maybe I'm wrong. If you're looking for more than that, what we wanted to see is some action with more time behind it. Okay, so just in case you're early, just in case some of these rallies do get sold off, you don't have to get nervous that you might be too early on this thing. So we saw some October sweeper activity come in right before the bell, actually. All right, and that would be the lines that I would look at the least October. There was some Jan action yesterday that I would look for a swing if you're looking for that bigger move. So what I'm talking about, if you're looking for at least half of this getting retraced here, north of 40, I think you got to go out to October, January, just on the smart side there. All right, but aggressive activity, they came in a cut, like I said, 3-4 times in this SGMS. I don't know if you guys caught it intraday, what went on, but look at this. Look at this right here. I don't know if you guys can make that out. So this was the rally back. This was the rally from red to green. That was the rally I caught nicely. Okay. And then I didn't even know it. Somebody brought it to my attention. This just came out of nowhere. Whoop. And was actually down like close to $3 and came all the way back into the green again. So strange. Then flow was pretty quiet up until you could see there a little spike right before the bell. They did some buying in October. All right, so those three, in my opinion, that was the top call sweeper activity on the day. There was some other stuff out there. NLSN, this name has been beaten down silly. You had some block activity come in, a cheap bull risk reversal, but the player did sell some puts there in September. Okay, so maybe he tries to find a bottom here. You might want to keep an eye on this name. I don't know much about it. I don't know how it moves. All right, but NLSN. Couple of unusual buyers today. One in Click. Kind of reminds me of the Cuervo a little bit. All right, this is a semiconductor. And what I found weird is some semis look awful. And then you got Cuervo and this one that looked totally different. But anyway, unusual buyer. Block, not a sweep. I don't know if this name's capable of catching sweeps, maybe, but it does open the largest position of open interest in this KLIC. What the hell did he open? Hold on a second. Oh. September 28 calls. So pretty big block for this name. And again, the significance there, guys, post earnings. Okay. That's why, if I would have sort of blocked in this thing last week, I'm not even talking about it. I don't even remember that it caught anybody. But it's a lot different now that we got post earnings flow here. Okay, so earnings gone. I don't know how they did. Seems to be okay. It looks like a little lift. Again, not crazy about the spot, but I get a little silly like that. I like a lot of you guys. I don't like drawdowns, and to avoid drawdowns, you really want to try to catch these things while they're still in some consolidation or weakness. A lot of times you'll get that momentum to shift in your favor, and you can use that as cushion. Not that this is a big chase, but this can easily come back down. Digesting this week of little grind here. So something to keep an eye on. Something to keep an eye on. The Dow DuPont was October 70s. They piled those up nicely. And the Cuervo was February. They paid up to $7 on that Cuervo. February 90s. So you see, not too far out of the money, close to the money, big wood, decent size. As a whole, you like to see that. The spec action's fine. And we love the spec action, and we can make money off the momentum in the spec action. But for us to feel comfortable that these guys are actually really buying things in this market, you need to see these real orders, whether you like these names or not. It just makes you feel better that these guys have confidence in something out there. Okay. I see already people asking about sentiment, and I'm happy that you guys are, because obviously it's important. And listen, okay, you see where we're at here, right? You see where SPY is, you see where the Qs are. You're not going to have sentiment in your favor when you see a ramp like this. Okay, when you see a rally like this, there's going to be some bullish sentiment out there. And there is. Okay, there is. The good thing is the shorter term sentiment, one down morning off a Trump headline or one actual red day, okay, can wipe all that bullishness out. We see it time and time again. All right. What sentiment is telling us now is that retail money is getting a little too sloppy within the hot stuff of the market. Okay, so that's how you get a gauge on things. In other words, anything that looks like this, okay, that's rallied consecutive days here, grinding out, may show signs of some exhaustion, tiredness, and may breathe a bit. Okay, what happens is the retail money that comes in here, screaming breakout, that drawdown is going to shake them out and wipe out a lot of that sloppiness, right? That bullish sentiment. We've seen it. You guys remember we were talking, weren't we talked about Google on one of these webinars, okay? And we mentioned how post earnings, everybody, because the stock was up so much, wants to get long up here, okay? And then you get a pullback and nobody even wants to look at Google, okay? And then today, you see what you saw it already this morning, plus 30, and people are talking Google new highs again. We want to train ourselves to do the opposite of that. The opposite of that. Okay, so if you like Google, okay, it's not my cup of tea, obviously, off a move like this in the gap up. But if you still think Google has upside, you're waiting for something like this to shake out those sloppy buyers. And then when they don't want this thing, they want nothing to do with it, all of a sudden they change their mind only because of price action. That's where you want to look for an entry. It doesn't mean you're going to be right every single time, but at least you have a fighter's chance in it. You know what I mean? At least you have a shot in it now. Because look at this. Nothing's changed, and you actually might have had a decent trade out of it. Okay, so you don't even need to be right to cash your ticket. You can accidentally just off sentiment and price action make some money. All right, so that's the only thing you guys see me harp about constantly. Okay, there will be some names that just continue higher and keep going. Okay, and those are the names that lure the retail money into doing that and making that a habit, and ultimately that's what buries them. Okay, you can't worry about the stuff that runs away from you. You gotta play this game with some sort of strategy in the back of your head, and that's all I mean by when I talk about spots. I'm not talking about any technicals or anything like that. You guys know that. All right, so to sum it up in simple English, because sometimes I get questions that you guys seemed a little confused on the sentiment front. Short-term sentiment could use a breather here for obvious reasons. All right, that breather would be an opportunity to start looking for the type of action we're seeing into that consolidation or weakness. Okay, but I will add this. This is the one really positive thing I think we have going for us. And you don't want to kind of ignore it, even though short-term sentiment is a little too hot. Just because sentiment is hot doesn't mean they can't rotate into a name like this, right? Sentiment's not too hot here, I'll tell you that much. Okay, so keep that in mind. You know what I mean? If we start to see rotation into the laggards or names that really didn't participate in this most recent rally, that would be a good thing, because all that means is Apple will breathe a bit, which it should. Okay, or even names like Facebook that have here, right? This is exactly what I'm talking about. You don't want to chase this. This is when you see sentiment hot, this is what you want to avoid, because this is where things can get tired, and they can rotate out of this and into some of the laggards. And hopefully we see that. Worst case scenario, these things just pull back and then we see flow into these things at better spots. Like, for example, Netflix, I'm dying. That's the one name, believe it or not. Well, I like Facebook too, but Netflix is a name that has treated me well in the past and catches enough action. The Tesla, the Amazon, they catch action once in a blue moon, real action. The Netflix, like the Micron, known to catch missiles when they really want it. So, I hope this thing hangs out down here long enough, and we have that opportunity. We don't want it to come into plus 25 from a decent spot. You want to see the bulls get frustrated here a little bit, and then when that missile comes, most people ignore it. They don't like it anymore. So that's where the shorter term sentiment can be a good thing. Let some of these things cool off. And it again doesn't mean the overall market as a whole needs to crash. There's no reason to go from one extreme to the other. Just things need to breathe, because overall, okay, as bearish as things seem out there, the indices are bullish. There's nothing bearish about this. Now, under the hood is a different story, right? Under the hood, you got sectors getting lit up out there, but the indices as a whole, there's no reason to expect a crash. A little breather here and there could be decent spots all over the place. There still are. All right. Anybody have any questions on any of the action or any of the sentiment? NLSCN has a DeMark 9. Let's see. No, I don't. No. Oh, before earnings. That's before earnings. This you talking about? Right before earnings. That didn't help it. There were a couple, Neil. There were a couple of exhaustion signals that lined up nicely with flow, but you had earnings get in the way of a couple of them. The Roku, which tomorrow they report, so that's pretty much useless, but could have got a quick trade out of it. There were a couple. What was the name I was looking at today that had what I'm trying to think? I don't know, but yeah, Take-Two. Oh, let me talk a little bit about that. Take-Two yesterday had ridiculous December call buying again. Okay, those of you who have been on this webinar or members know Take-Two has been one of the top gaming names in regards to flow. Ridiculous action. Okay, maybe not as much action as an ATVI. ATVI maybe caught more sweepers in general, but as far as quality order flow, this Take-Two hands down has been the best. So it also had a nice rally, okay, off the flow. Pre-earnings, we had a perfect dip pre-earnings. Okay, and then once again get screwed with a huge earnings gap up. All right. Yesterday we had December call buying in size again. Now, here's the issue with it. One, it's not off a pull. Okay, it's off actually a huge gap, a little breather off the gap, but a huge gap. That's one that I'm not crazy about. Two, you got to understand, even though we didn't see anything close per se, there was a decent amount of size activity that took place during this run. Okay, so there is the chance, because it's quote repeat buying at higher levels, that it could be somebody rolling a position. Okay, he doesn't have to close the same exact day. There's no law, right? He doesn't have to close the same day he opens up his roll. Now he can do that tomorrow. He can do that next week. A lot of times, I think Steven in the room pointed it out, a lot of times we see them open the position into weakness and then close the existing position into strength at different times. All right, so that's the only thing I wanted to add. I know the action is enticing. The size is there. The name has been great off action, but it's not as juicy as we were hoping for. Okay. On the flip side, you got EA, which they're starting to poke around with sizing. Okay. And here's your 9, Neil, by the way. Okay. Now this EA becomes interesting. Again, similar to the Take Two. You guys remember the initial activity down into heavy selling, beautiful run off it. Okay. Then earnings took it down. That's exactly what you want to see. Guidance, I don't care what was the reasoning. Okay. I don't even want to get caught up in that. What I want to see now is I want to see them come in with decent size and start buying again. All right. And we started seeing signs. We haven't seen sweeper activity yet, but signs that the big boys out there are putting some money to work. Call spreads, I think they're out in January. And today we saw a bull combo that I'm hoping to confirm in off the open interest updates tomorrow. In other words, bull combo, he sold puts to buy call spreads. Okay, which is a good thing. Now, if you want to try to get the timing aspect down a little better here, you want to see sweeper activity. That'll be your heads up that maybe you shouldn't look around too much longer and you should start at least piecing into something. All right, sweepers, again, sweepers equal momentum, right? You hear me talk about that a lot. That's the first thing you should think about when you see sweeper activity is think about shorter term momentum. And, once you start seeing size, call spread, size combo, start piecing in with some time, you look towards the call sweepers, maybe some August call sweeper activity comes in, or maybe some size Jan call sweeper activity come in. That would be great. And then you have that entry that we've been waiting for in a name like EA. And you got to understand, guys, I get it. There's bad news, right? Why else would the stock come down? If the news was great, the stock would have done what Take Two would have done. You know what I mean? So if you want to buy those dips, if you want those secondary entries, the only time you're going to see size come back into these names is off bad news. That's where they see opportunity. We see that time and time again. George is saying, can you explain on why they go out to January instead of December, November? Honestly, Georgia, I would be lying if I told you there was, I could pinpoint exactly the reasoning. But, the only thing I take from it is they want some time there for 2 reasons. One, the size bets we see, okay, the real size we see come in, they don't go out a month, rarely 2 months. They want time behind it because that's where they catch the big move. Okay, I'll give you an example. EA, when it caught the activity back here off that Star Wars game nonsense, If you guys remember that, we spoke about that numerous times. Remember Star Wars games? No one's going to buy the game. Everybody hates it. Blah, blah, blah. EA's going bankrupt off it. All the nonsense. All right. That was, if I'm not mistaken, right over here, right? Or looks similar to it. And they were early, but they went all the way out into the summer from that point, Georgia. Okay. So what we saw was there was some size buying to come in. The stock still went lower. Okay. They came in the next day. They bought more in size. Stock had a little pop. A couple of days later, lower again. They came back again. You understand? So the only way they're going to build a position into weakness is if they have enough time. So that's what they're looking for there. And the real buying all the time, Georgia, the real buyers, okay, the real buyers that are making a bet on the company, not chatter, not rumor, not momentum. The real deal Sharpies out there all play with time. Even if they don't need it, they all pay for time. They're not worried about dishing out the money. So if Georgia, if you're looking for a trade off the name, okay, you want to see sweeper activity. That would be what you were looking for. In other words, if you don't want to play EA over that scale of time and you just want a squeeze or a bounce from here, you want sweeper activity. You don't even really care about the quality per se. You understand? You just want some momentum generated, right? Maybe get some shorts to squeeze here and stuff like that. So that's sweeper activity you would want to focus on. Perfect. Okay. Somebody else had a good question. Vinny in the room. What's up, Mr. Vinny? Vinny, by the way, has been on fire. Ridiculous. Vinny nailed Tesla today. Basically, we're going to his crib. When's the party? This weekend, Vin? And we're having a big time party over there, all top of the line catering, drinks on him, off the Vinny Boombot score today. Vinning. Very nice. That's the new term we're throwing around the room, vinning. But all kidding aside, Vinny nailed one today in Tesla. Really nice. You know, a little luck, and that's what happens. Sometimes things like this can happen. What's this thing doing aftermarket anyway? Nothing. Vin, you're out, right? What do you got? A little stock left? I know you sold the calls and moved it into some common, but you locked the majority in, right? Anyway, congratulations on the hit, Vin, and now your job is to hang on to it, right, buddy? That's the most important thing here. Don't look for the next Tesla. That'll get you in trouble. What other questions we got? Some solid questions, though. Georgia, I love that question. How is the float between EA and Take-Two? Can you please look at the short interest? You know, you raise a good point, Cal. I don't know, but it's something definitely to take a look at. I know the Take-Two can move. I know that. ATVI, usually the slower of the bunch. What the hell's that aftermarket? ATVI, usually the slower of the bunch. I know from day trading it gives me fits. Take-Two, for the most part, the biggest mover. There's probably a lot less of a float there, smaller company. I don't know the difference between the three. Anybody have any info on that? Or any short percentages on any of the names? But if I dig it up, I'll throw it on my personal Twitter account. All right, because that's actually good to know if there's any decent shorts on these things. And you see, look, again, for those of you asking about the DeMark stuff and all that and how I use it and how people in the room use it, sometimes it's just logic, but you need these things to smack you in the head, okay? You have a 9 up here, red 9, okay? So just if your own eyeballs couldn't see through the noise out there that this thing was overheated, you had this little red 9 here flash in front of you to tell you, chill out. It's not even worth a trade with earnings coming up because this thing's overheated. Okay, at the same time, you know, boom, you get a nice shellacking, and the 9 down here is telling us that some of the selling may be exhausted here. or has the potential to be exhausted here. So if we see some flow come in here, again, sweepers would tell us that the momentum is about to shift. For a swing trade or a position trade, you want to see the size start to piece in. And that's why, I look at this stuff. It just lines up to how I like to play these things. Okay, and think about it, that's what sentiment is a lot of times, right? Bullish extreme is coming usually when the market is pushing higher, and bearish extreme is all the time when the market, there's some bearish activity around it, usually in selling. All these things are just reminders to keep you disciplined and to keep you in check. That's it. There's no magic crystal ball here. Let me see. I skipped over a couple questions. I don't want to skip anybody. AMD, where'd it go? AMD in the money weekly order today. Nice. Yeah, AMD, the flow there is just insane. I mean, I just can't get over it. I can't get over it. I didn't trade it today. It was actually down. Yesterday, I traded just off the machine gun type action that came in. I told you guys a lot of times, regardless of whether it's a new name or not, if I see sweepers just annihilate a name, could be weekly calls or something like that, as for day trading purposes, I just want to get in the middle of it, because I know there's going to be some momentum. I can get in, especially on the equity, keep my stop so I'm not, falling in love with the company or anything by that means. And if they keep coming, you get a nice move out of it. Because again, not to sound like a broken record, sweepers create momentum. A lot of times we see them come in, boom, 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 boom. They're sweeping weekly calls in AMD, and that goes on for 2 hours. And that's where you get, moves like we saw yesterday in AMD. What was that? That was today. This was yesterday. That grind higher continuously. We saw it in Facebook yesterday. A lot of you guys caught, nice day trading Facebook. Today, different tune, right? Facebook, early on this morning, we saw a little protection out there. Now, for me, if you're new to this, I don't recommend shorting off of that. All right, but Lucci does a lot of times. A lot of guys in the room do it. All right, but they're using it with something else they're looking on. They're reading tape and seeing some sellers come in, or they're looking at technicals and seeing some stuff break through levels. All right, but early on today, the flow was telling us that Facebook, momentum-wise, there wasn't going to be much juice, at least to the upside, as opposed to yesterday where they came in storming. All right, but that's day trading stuff. Anyway, that's day trading. All right, but AMD, yeah, this is nothing new, okay, but they continuously support this thing on the call side. So, I don't have much else to say about it. I know there's a new chip out. That could be the heat behind it. Has been a strong name for a while. I like it personally on dips. If, for swing trade purposes, you get some weakness and you see some call sweeper activity come into that weakness, these names that get supported, we talk about all the time, they can bounce back. For day trading purposes, you want to see the heat like we saw yesterday. Hello, I've been following you on Twitter for a long time. Are you able to send me last 30, 60, or 90-day trade history? On what name? Trade history on what name? You lost me there, Cal. Vin saying, yo, G, still learning here. Do you tape read or just follow sweeper? No, I never got into tape reading. I met Lucci, what is it now? I don't know, 2 years maybe. And that's where we teamed up. So basically it's the same premise where, you can apply the tape reading and flow reading really meshes well together. Just like, you hear me say sentiment and sweeper activity work well hand in hand. The tape reading, it's obviously the same philosophy there. Sweepers, we're looking at players in the option market. The tape, you're looking at the tape for buyers and sellers, same thing. I never even started to try to tape read. Yeah, I've done a lot of things in my career. The only thing that's kept me in check and disciplined enough for me to find consistency is obviously sweeper activity and applying sentiment with it. All right. But everything, like I said, guys, there are so many. Like, that's why I'm never pushing one agenda, right? You never hear me. The one thing I always tell you that you should know where sentiment is at, in my opinion, at all times. I don't care what style of trader you are. You should have an idea where the retail money is lined up at all times. For me, I couldn't come into the trading day not knowing where they were. I'd be lost. You know what I mean? I'd be lost. So, other than that, the flow is used with so many different things. I told you, I got a good buddy of mine who, put the DeMark things physically on my screen for me to look at it because he's been using these DeMark exhaustion signals with sweeper activity for years. For years, he's been telling me about it. And, he finally said, just at least keep an eye on, have them on your screen. And it's just going to add to the confidence. So I haven't really dove into anything else new, put it that way, to answer your question, Vin. But you have to get it, whatever it is, whether it's tape reading, flow. You got to understand why it works and what you're looking for. The people who get lost in the tape reading and flow are the people who just want buy and sell, nothing but winners out of it. When you're looking through those lenses, you're never going to see the light, right? We talk about that all the time. Because it's about confidence. That's all it comes down to. It's about confidence. Lucci, the tape is his main confidence, and he uses the flow to support what he sees on tape, not vice versa. For me, I need to know where that sentiment is to support my confidence with the flow. So that's all it is, Vin. And you may have to poke around a little bit to see which ones work best for you, but that's the beauty of this game. You can have fun and learn along the way. Just you don't need to bury yourself trying to do it. Relax. There's no time limit here, and eventually you'll get it. But that's what it comes down to: the confidence. The confidence. Eric's talking about how can one get sentiment without the school? Oh, sentiment you can find all over the place. First of all, equity put the call. You can find it anywhere. Okay, so I'm not going to lie and tell you guys you need me to find sentiment. I'm talking about a basic idea of where sentiment is. So put the calls you can find anywhere. Sentiment Trader has a gazillion sentiment indicators. You guys hear me talk about them all the time. So what I'm saying is you should have a basic idea of where sentiment is. You don't need to really get into detail like I like to do it, okay? But as a position trader, you should have an idea of where sentiment is at so you can avoid chasing highs when the probability of a drawdown or consolidation is high, all right? And more importantly, getting you to buy weakness. That's the most important thing, okay? Because we are wired when we see red. We're wired as human beings. When we see red, when we see stocks going down, the last thing we want to do is get long. And that's where sentiment can be a huge help. A huge help. Cal saying, sorry to confuse you. I was asking for 30 days of alert trades. Yeah, we don't have alert trades, Cal. That's not what we do. That's kind of what I was just referring to. We don't have alert trades. What I trade may not be what, Vinny trades or Eric. I didn't trade Tesla today. They made a killing on the Tesla. I didn't trade any Tesla today. So I think I think you got the wrong impression. It's not a stock picking service we got here. I'm not telling you to follow my picks. I am the god of option flow, and you need to follow everything I do. What I'm telling you is there's a legitimate edge out of sweeper activity and sentiment that, over the course of a long career that I have witnessed, and you can use it in whichever trading style you may trade off. But there's no stock picking service. Like, for example, today you hear me point out a couple names. My job, this is the way I look at my job. My job is to share with people in the steam room and on private Twitter what the best activity, the top order flow on the day is. Not where to buy them. They should buy them. They should sell them. They have to buy them. Okay. My job is to tell them where the real money, where the big money, the aggressive money is going. And they got an orchestrated game plan. Cal, no matter how you slice and dice in this game, you're going to have to orchestrate some sort of risk management game plan. No, if you got the best stock picker in the world to tell. All right, because I can give you 4 stocks right now. 3 out of the 4 could go to the moon. The one that you pick, Cal, and decided to put your money in goes south. And what happens? What good is that? It's not about just one stock pick. You're wasting your time here. You're wasting your time. Here's a perfect example today. You want to make a big hit, you roll the dice on Tesla or some action, and you made yourself a big hit, right? What's that mean for tomorrow? Does that mean anything for tomorrow? No. And if you play the same exact way over the course of the next week or two, you're probably going to give it all back. It's about coming in every morning with a strategy. Something to keep you in check, more importantly. That's what it is, something to keep you in check. Is there a good ticker for the equity put to call on TradingView? I think it's no TradingView. Hold on, do I have it on here or I took it off? Shoot. Yeah, there's one on TradingView. Eric, I'll let you know. You're in the room. I'll let you know. It's PC. Oh, you know what? I could just type it in here. What the hell am I doing? Put the call. Oh, no wonder. This is just a simple. There it is. PCC. There's a bunch of them, as you can see here. On Thinkorswim. No, what the hell? This is just a simple volume ratio, of put the calls. But again, every market bottom had a spike in puts. Every one you go back. There's another site, Eric, that is even easier to read. I'll get it for you. It's a free site. And they update equity, total, put the calls all day long. You could try CBOE, but there's a site that overlaps it with SPY, and you could get an idea with it. I'll get that for you. I keep forgetting the name of it. Somebody else asked me about it. I see Disney storming back. Yeah. Look at Disney right back. Eric, he's saying they have different readings than I put. Yeah, because there's several different. Here's the thing, very quickly, okay? A put to call, you see a lot of times total put to call ratio. That's the total options traded in the market, puts to calls, a volume ratio, okay? Then you got the equity put to call. That's in all of option equities, right? In equities that trade options, again, a volume ratio of the put to call, okay? Then you got the snazzy stuff that I like to look at, which really fine tunes that stuff. And I'll give you an example. The squeezometer has a bunch of criteria in it. Not only does it measure put to calls, okay, not only does it measure equity, It measures opening activity only, bought to open only, non-sweeper. So you see how dramatically that fine tunes that whole broad put to call ratio? So I guess there's ways you can build something like that, but you're going to need like Trade Alert or something like that to do it. You know, you're going to need Trade Alert or something like that to do it. The problem with like an equity put to call or a total put to call, you're as a trader, you're not going to get as many signals. You know what I mean? You're not going to get as many signals. Like I give you an example, okay? If you're looking at equity put to call, these little dips here, you know, aren't going to have too high of readings. But this bottom here is going to have a high equity put to call ratio reading. Okay, so a lot of the major bottoms you will be signaled, but these little dips here that we like to take advantage of as traders, you're not going to get signals off of. So, but I was making the point that at the least, okay, at the least, and a lot of you guys are in the room, so you don't have to worry about this. That's why you're in the room, because I'm talking about these things constantly. But at the least, if you're not in the room, you should have an idea of where some of the sentiment stuff is. You know, you should have an idea. Like somebody mentioned the CNN fear greed. Now, I know a lot of people laugh it off, but that indicator actually is made up of legitimate stuff. It's a legit indicator. Okay, it's a legitimate indicator, and it's something worth looking at if you're not in the room. All right, the put to call is involved in that indicator. It's one of the indicators it's made up of. You know, and you're going to see, again, more big picture wise, you're going to see, you know, when a market rally is like this, I wouldn't be surprised if that indicator right now is almost at a bullish extreme. And I can guarantee you on these pullbacks, it's at bearish extremes. Okay, but it's good to know where these things are as a swing trader, position trader, because it gives you an idea of where you should put on risk and where you should limit that risk. That's the most important thing. Gary's saying, did you go over SGMS? I was driving my daughter around. Yeah, I'll go over it again. SGMS, Gary, we saw some real nice action, obviously, as you know. Several of us day traded it today off weakness. It was a decent trade. My opinion, if you're looking for that bigger move, and I totally understand it because I'm itching at it too, that 40 plus move, there was some October sweeper activity before the bell today that you can use as a good example. I would go October, Jan, if you're looking for that bigger move. And then, you know, the August, which is in just next week, for more of a active trade type thing. But I was making the point, Gary, that today twice you had August sweepers come into red, and the calls moved like 50%. You know, so that to me would be a definition of a trade, a short-term trade. You know, if you didn't take that off the table, you're probably looking for more than that. I think the prudent thing is to go further than August for that, just in case we're early here, you know? Because listen, there's some legitimate selling in these things. It's pretty obvious. There's some sellers in these things. And we see it time and time again. When they're selling like this, a lot of times we're early, right? Campbell's soup, an example. So just keep that in mind. And they may continue to come after it. That would be a beautiful sign. But I think there's enough action there already as a trigger. Just make sure you have enough time to catch the move. That's all. Any other questions? Did I skip over any questions here? But yeah, like I said, if you're on private Twitter or you're in the room, there's really nothing to worry about on the sentiment front. You know, I almost fine tune it down to, I mean, the squeezometer is intraday. That's an intraday indicator. You know, there's not too many of those out there. But as far as the stuff you need to know about on a intermediate term or longer term basis, we're looking at that constantly. Yeah, private Twitter, there's sentiment updates with the activity as well. Yeah, I swing, Neil. I'm a lot more selective. I'll be honest with you. Up until the 2016 election, I stopped. Before that, I'm saying, I stopped swinging for a good year and a half, I think it was. And the reason behind that was the action was awful. We weren't seeing those quote unquote missiles. A lot of stuff was just quick trade stuff. And I said to myself, why bother? I was doing a lot better on the swing trade side than I would on the day trade side. Anything I decided to try to catch a little more of on the swing trade, I'd give it all back. So I made the decision just to primarily focus on day trading, and then post-election, when the missiles finally appeared again, I started swing trading, but I try to stay really selective there. Like this SGMS, honestly, I thought I was going to come out of the day with a swing. I did not, being honest with you guys. I wish I did into the red there, but I'm still looking at it. If it's down later this week and there's action there again, I'll definitely look to take a shot on Octobers and Jans. I just try to stay a lot more selective there, Neil. I don't want to day trade any momentum or sweeper activity and swing trade any sweeper activity. I'll make myself dizzy. So I try to just swing trade the quality action with time. That's another thing. Like, for example, if I'm going to swing trade, I'm not looking to swing trade August here. I want to go out October, December, Jan. My swing trades, I treat them like positions. I swing trade them like positions. Anybody else have any questions or any names that maybe I didn't mention today? I think I mentioned the notable activity. Oh, you know what is another name that caught some action last couple of days? Win. Yesterday had some spec activity in weeklies that expire Friday. Today, this morning, I think it was December call spread, pretty decent size. And then some September sweeper activity in the afternoon. So, win obviously not at a bad level here, even for a trade, something to keep an eye on. But the list of names, now to keep an eye on, slowly, they're, getting bigger and bigger. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Yeah, you got some bank action. I'm not crazy about the banks here, though. You kind of missed the move at this point in the banks you're chasing here. We continue to see action there. Bank of America, Citi, Deutsche Bank is even still catching a little flow. And so you guys understand what I'm talking about here, all right? So we had some activity pre-earnings in the banks. Could have been most likely tied to earnings, but some decent activity. And then you had to pop off earnings, and they've been grinding up since. So the problem is, if you start chasing these highs, you get a little pullback and you're stuck, depending on what you're in. I'd rather wait for that tug when and if it comes, and then look for action there. Anybody else have any other names they traded today off action or saw action? Anything at all before we wrap it up? I saw somebody mention DDD. I don't remember seeing anything in DDD. DDD. Once in a while, you'll see chatter sweeps in that DDD. The ATVI we could keep an eye on here. EA, I told you, obviously. Definitely worth keeping an eye on here. I guess, especially if this week. WMB, William, this thing is just unconscious. You can't, here is much higher levels than where they initially hit it. You know, they started attack. I remember this thing literally down here, okay, catching some solid sweeper activity and me trying to day trade it, and I couldn't make 10 cents on this thing. That's how slow it was. And I'm talking about legitimate action. And I remember a couple people swinging it. I remember Denny Crane in the room took it for a swing. A couple guys took it for a swing. And you had pop and drop. It was just so slow. And then now you look at it, it's still catching action. And look at this thing. But up here, yeah, exactly. Like the ETP, now they're cooked. Yeah, you can look at, keep an eye on that ETE. They're reporting. If there's some weakness there off the number, keep an eye on flow into that, maybe for a trade, because William, as we've been seeing, all the ETP money, a lot of it's been coming into this ETE Septembers and stuff. So if you get some sort of weakness off earnings, but yeah, there might be better things to trade out there, quicker movers. Yeah, Netflix I got on eye. Netflix I'm eyeing for missiles. See, for me, I know a lot of you guys like to trade these names, so I'm not actively trading these names. I trade anything where the stock is liquid, especially on the day trade side. But for me to swing the Netflix, I'm looking for one thing, and that's missiles. There is a possibility we don't see missiles and we see some decent action. And if you like Netflix off this dip, that would be your cue off the flow. The stock may be down 3, and we see, like we've been seeing, weekly sweepers come in. Maybe you guys want to trade off that. But for me, I know Netflix, and I know how they buy it when they want it. And they come after it with a vengeance when they want it. You see this whole move here, this whole entire... Guys, I remember back at Netflix before this eruption, nobody wanted to touch this thing. Nobody wanted to touch this thing. And there was missile after missile in this name. But obviously, the run, you're not going to see missiles into a run like this. So this is the first legitimate pull. I'm hoping we see missiles at some point. So I told you, for a lot of you, I told you on the last webinar, I would treat it the same way we looked at Micron or this consolidation back here. Hold on, let me take this off because it's annoying me here. All right, the same thing, same way, okay? Micron, if you remember, had this killer run, ton of action, all right, and then finally had that pull. But we didn't see those Tepper sweeps until when? All the way over here. So you had to have the patience to wait for it. Could it have been traded through this mess? Yeah, if you bought weakness, you could have got a trade out of it. But if you wanted that, high confidence, high probability swing position, you had to wait for the Tepper missiles. We know, if this thing was going to get going, they would show up. And they showed up literally on the last day this thing printed a low right here. And then you had a nice move out of it. So that's what you kind of want to see out of Netflix. And it may do something like this. It may do something like this. Consolidation like this. The stock was up, what, 130% before the pull? So it's likely, at the least, it does something similar to this. So use this as your blueprint, I would. For trades, Netflix, buy the little sell-offs there if you see action. Don't chase the run-ups, because if they fail, you're dead. And for something more than that, look for missiles. SBGI, I think we saw some pre-earnings blocks in SBGI. Oh, they had earnings? Yeah, I didn't see anything of late here. Nothing of late. No, the big action guys I've been sharing with you, I told you about. And Twilio had some flow pre-earnings, and then had the earnings pop. But that's it. All right, so we're going to wrap it up, but just again, a refresher here. The market on a short-term sentiment basis could take a little bit of a breather, okay? But I wouldn't get too caught up in it because there's a lot of stuff where money can rotate into while some of the hotter things chill out a little bit. And, there could be some decent squeeze opportunities, decent squeeze. A lot of things got hammered out there. Like I said, you look at the market, right? Take a look at SPY. You're like, wow, like this is some bull move here. Under the hood, you see it in people talking about the breadth and particular sectors. There were things getting beaten to hell out there. Beaten to hell. Like that SGMS we're looking at. Look at that. That doesn't look like a bull market to me. Breadth. In other words, stocks gaining to stocks losing, stocks making new highs to stocks making new lows. And understand, in other words, Neil, if this market, if there was solid breadth, not oxygen, exactly. If there was solid breadth behind this market, you would have more names making new 52-week highs. Like we'll see the market, you see it in the indices. The Dow one day is up 120, the NASDAQ's down, the Russell is crooked, right? Every day it's a different thing going on. So the indices alone tell you a little bit of what goes on a day-to-day basis. But that's why when you see stuff like that, again, it always is important to pay attention to sentiment, but understand what may apply, right? You get a bullish extreme, it's likely the names that have participated in the rally are going to be the ones that cool off. Here's a perfect example, okay? Perfect example. If you remember, we were talking about recently being at a bullish extreme, okay, on a short-term basis. The market hardly pulled back. But go look at some of the hotter names out there. They got shellacked, right? Shellacked. IQ, even some of the FANG names that were hot. Now, thanks to earnings, obviously. Some of the software names. So that's where I would just use a little bit of logic. You see extreme bullish sentiment, just have an idea. Avoid chasing the hot stuff. That's the way I would look at it. And if you don't see flow going into the laggards, then it's a good time to sit on your hands, like I've been doing for a long time, up until recently where things are loosening up a bit. All right, we're all good. So like I said, keep an eye on the hot stuff here because it may cool off a little bit. Look for rotation. I think that's important. I think that's where the money to be made is here, some rotation. And that's it. We still got some earnings to go. Just because we got some of the big names out of the way doesn't mean we can roll the dice off action into earnings. You want to try to avoid earnings and keep an eye on that post-earnings flow. Another thing I was stressing to members of the Steamroom and private Twitter, names that sell off earnings, keep an eye on that flow coming in there. Because sometimes they present, the best opportunities if they're buying into that, if they're buying into that. All right. If anybody has any questions, those of you who are not members, wallstreetjesus.com, the strategy tab up here. Okay. Who was that? Cal, if you're out there, you were asking me questions, you could go to wallstreetjesus.com, the strategy section. Tells you how to use, or how a lot of us use this information and apply it to trading strategy. All right, they're quick, easy to read blogs. 1, 2, 3, you'd be done with them all. All right, if anybody has any interest We've kept this promotion on for a long time now. 3-day trial, no credit card, no obligation. Like I said, 3 days, you're just going to get an idea of what we're doing. If you get lucky, you may hit a Tesla if you're there on one of the 3 days. If it's on a 3 days where the action's a disaster, you're going to think it's useless. But the main thing is to get an idea of what we're looking for. And then, 50% off the first month. After that, if you have an interest in just private Twitter, that's basically the flow, sentiment updates, open interest updates. Obviously, I'm just not on audio video. That's $59.99 a month. You go to the products tab and you click on private Twitter. All right, guys. Good luck the rest of the week. What we're going to start doing, I was going to do it for this Tuesday, but we'll leave it for next week till some people get back. We're going to start bringing some traders from the room on. And again, not professional traders, people who have done well, people who may be struggling with some stuff, just so everybody maybe can take away some tidbits on what people are doing well and having trouble with, and can gain some knowledge off of that. Curious, why not just use the web page instead of Twitter and close up some of the channels? Web page. You lost me, D3. You're talking technology here now. You lost me completely. All right. So good luck the rest of the week, guys. I'll speak to you guys in the room and on Twitter. The rest of you, good luck. I'll talk to you guys soon.